Welcome to Day 7 of our epic 40-day 2025 Pacific Northwest road trip. We covered 345 miles during this leg of the trip. In Part 1, we start the day at Fort Laramie National Historic Site. And here we are starting a new day at Fort Laramie National Historic Site in Fort Laramie, Wyoming. Originally established as a private fur trading fort in 1834, Fort Laramie evolved into the largest and best known military post on the northern plains. The grand old post witnessed the entire sweeping saga of America's western expansion and Indian resistance to the encroachment on their territories. The fort interprets and preserves over 50 structures and foundations that were built during the military era at the historic site. This concrete obelisk near the entrance commemorates the site history as a fur trading and military post. The inscribed text on this side reads, Fort Laramie, military post from June 26, 1849 to March 2, 1890. This monument erected by the state of Wyoming and a few interested people. The circular marker near the base is a marker for the Mormon Pioneer National Historic Trail. The plaque on the east side reads the National Register of Historic Places, Wyoming Place Number 13, Fort Laramie. The plaques on the west side are the centennial commemoration of this site's role as a major post for the Pony Express from April 1860 to October 1861. They are identical to the plaques we saw at Scotts Bluff National Monument. The north side commemorates the Transcontinental Telegraph Line, which rendered the Pony Express obsolete upon its completion in October 1861. We are now on the side of Fort Laramie National Historic Site and heading out to the Visitor Center. Looks to be a very large site. In the distance can be seen the hospital ruins. This 12-bed facility had a dispensary, kitchen, dining room, isolation rooms, and surgeon's office. This was the first lime concrete building at Fort Laramie. Post-trader John Collins erected a hotel behind the hospital in 1876. He named it the Rustic Hotel, and it was to provide lodging for gold seekers. This is the ruins of the Sutler's House. It was a Victorian-style cottage built in 1863. This is the foundation of the post Sutler's House. Built in 1863, this house was among the more ornate at the post. A sutler is a civilian merchant who followed an army and sold provisions to soldiers in the field around a military post. They provided items not supplied by the government, such as tobacco, candy, manufactured clothing, personal care items, and various foods. This is the cavalry barracks. This is the only surviving enlisted men's barracks at Fort Laramie. The building proper was completed in late 1874. The building was designed to provide quarters and other needed support facilities for 2 companies of soldiers. The entire second floor was made up of only 2 equal large rooms. These were the company dormitory bays where the enlisted soldiers lived. Each could house 60 soldiers or 1 company. On the first floor beneath each squad room, the building was divided into a kitchen, mess room, cook's room, storage room, washroom, library, armory, and orderly room for the NCOs. This building is the Visitor Center. and it used to be the commissary back in the days. Built in 1884, this lime concrete building is the commissary storehouse. It served as the warehouse for the Army's food rations. It now houses park offices and visitor center. The old bakery and the new bakery ruins, built in 1876 and 1883 respectively, were two of the most important buildings at the fort. Bread was a staple of the soldiers' diet. Here in big double brick ovens, bakers made up to 700 18-ounce loaves daily. This is the 1868 Treaty Field area.
Plains nations. The dominant tribe was the Lakota, sometimes called the Sioux. Two other tribes also frequented the area, the Cheyenne and the Arapaho. Great Plains Indians were fearless on horseback, following the herds of buffalo across the plains. The buffalo supplied many of their needs. They ate the meat and tanned the hides for clothing and shelter. By the 1850s, immigrants crossing the plains threatened the buffalo population. Hostility between Indians and immigrants sometimes ended in bloodshed. The U.S. Army came to Fort Laramie to protect its citizens and negotiate their safe passage with local tribes.
This is where the wagons used to cross.
Controlled contact.
Between 1841 and 1866, at least 350,000 people crossed the Missouri westbound for new homes in Oregon, California, and Utah. Fort Laramie provided a welcome respite from the tedium of the trail. Here, travelers could rest, resupply, mail letters, exchange worn draft animals, take advantage of the medical, wheelwright, and blacksmith services. This field is where the Treaty of 1868 was signed between the United States government and the various Indian tribes. Led by Lakota Chief Red Cloud, delegates from several tribes met with the United States representatives to negotiate a peace settlement. The peace ended in 1874 with the discovery of gold in the Black Hills. Embassy on the Northern Plains was the nickname for Fort Laramie. It acted as an unofficial embassy for diplomacy, trade, and treaty making in the 19th century. High water levels on the Laramie River during the spring often damaged or washed out existing bridges at this site. As a result, between 1853 and 1890, several bridges were successively constructed here. The bridges were well traveled as living quarters and a hotel had sprung up on the opposite bank. Beginning in 1802, the Army enlisted women aged 13 and older to wash soldiers' laundry. Laundresses often lived and worked in an area of substandard housing known as Soapsuds Row. Usually immigrants and commonly Irish, laundresses were often married to enlisted men and were a popular distraction. Raucous, bawdy, and colorful, these women frequently kept the officers of the day busy reprimanding them for activities ranging from brawling and drinking to spousal abuse. This new guardhouse replaced an unhealthy, overcrowded older one. It held both major and minor offenders. This is the site of the original guardhouse. Parts of the foundation can be seen here. And this is the newer guardhouse. Built in 1876, the new guardhouse was built atop the foundation of a guardhouse which had been deemed unhealthy by the post surgeon. The foundation and fireplace remnants can still be seen both inside and outside of the building. This is the inside of the guardhouse. There's more of the old foundation. The guardhouse houses an original 12-pound mountain howitzer, an original mountain Hotchkiss, and several wagons and limbers. A 12-pound mountain howitzer was a lightweight, versatile, smoothbore, muzzle-loading artillery piece used extensively by the U.S. Army during the mid to late 19th century. It was designed to be highly mobile in rough terrain, capable of being disassembled and packed onto 3 mules or pulled by a single horse. The 12-pound designation refers to the weight of the solid-shot projectile it was designed to fire. The Hotchkiss mountain gun was a light breech-loading artillery piece designed for portability in rugged terrain. It could be dismantled and carried by pack mules, making it effective for cavalry units in the late 19th century. A limber is a 2-wheeled vehicle with a large ammunition chest that was attached to the rear of a cannon carriage via an iron pintle. It was pulled by a team of horses, typically 6, and served as the tractor for moving the gun and its associated equipment. General Sink, or latrine ruins from 1886. To protect the post's drinking water supply, a privy or general sink was built for 4 companies, with sewage channeled to the Laramie River. And here we can see the latrine.
Wow.
Not sure how they did it, but...
Well,
Here is located the foundation of the infantry barracks built in 1866. It was a 1-story frame building that housed 3 companies with mess halls and kitchens for each in the back. Here is the foundation of the 2-company infantry barracks built in 1866. These are the ruins of 2 company barracks from 1866. The only thing left are the foundations. This grassy area is the centerpiece of Fort Laramie. The soldiers trained, raised the American flags, and even played baseball here. The ground saw 2 types of formations. Guard mount or changing of the guard occurred daily at 9 a.m. A full dress parade was held once a week on Sunday. This guardhouse, constructed in 1866, was the second at Fort Laramie. It was built to house 40 prisoners, but often had more. The upper level housed soldiers on guard duty. This is the old guardhouse from 1866. This is the back side of the old guardhouse where they had the cells for prison. Soldiers could be confined to the guardhouse for simply having a dirty uniform. More serious offenders were held in the solitary confinement cells located in the far corner. These are the 1885 Administration Building ruins. Oops. This is the ruins of the Administration Building. We just got hit in the back by lawn sprinklers. Built in 1885, the Administration Building served as the Fort Laramie headquarters. It also served as the post theater and school. Looking at the interior of the north wall, there's a visible section that shows the marks from wood planks used to make the forms when the concrete was poured. Like many other buildings at Fort Laramie, when this building was sold at public auction, it was stripped of its timber that would be used in construction elsewhere in the vicinity. Wyoming's first public school opened at Fort Laramie in 1852. The fort schools were open to all children, including those of civilians and enlisted men. Education at the school focused on basic subjects such as reading, penmanship, arithmetic, history, and geography. These core subjects were often referred to as the 3 R's. Next is the captain's quarters from 1870. This building is the captain's quarters. Much nicer than the other buildings. Originally intended as housing for the commanding officer, this building was divided into a duplex when the CO chose to remain in another dwelling. The quarters were completed in 1870, at which time high-ranking officers and their families took up residency. Lumber for the quarters was hauled from Laramie Peak in Denver. Adobe brick was made on site on sunny days. The interior of the restored captain's quarters reflects the life of a comfortable military family during the 1870s. The quarters are furnished with period pieces to represent a midpoint between primitive bachelor accommodations and the more affluent Victorian styles of the 1880s. The quarters likely included a parlor, bedroom, and potentially a laundry room with a kitchen either on the same floor or the first floor. The partitioning of the building into a duplex created a very narrow central stairway. The left unit is the part of the building that has been refurnished as a typical captain's quarters from around 1872. Pierre Chateau and Company constructed a fort on the site in 1841 to better compete with nearby rival trading posts. Indian tribes, especially the Lakota, traded tanned buffalo robes at Fort John for a variety of manufactured goods. Throughout the 1840s, the take on buffalo robes declined. Fort John's role soon changed. In 1841, the first of many westward bound immigrants arrived at Fort John. Thousands of immigrants bound to California, Oregon, and the Salt Lake Valley would eventually stop at the fort. Traders at Fort John did a brisk seasonal business catering to the needs of immigrants. A few busy weeks of summer immigrant trade, however, did not make up for the poor returns in the fur business. The U.S. Army purchased Fort John in 1849 and used the old fort largely as a corral and warehouse until its demolition in 1862. Yeah. Yeah. This is the remains of the ice house. Officers' quarters ruins from 1881. These large buildings, two duplexes and the commanding officers' quarters, were additions to smaller 1855 adobe buildings. These three buildings are ruins of the officers' quarters. Fort Laramie began as a dusty, drab frontier outpost, but by the 1880s, the Army embarked upon a major cleanup and improvement campaign. The delightful results were evident in the 1887 view. Trees and grass, gas lights, boardwalks, picket fences, wide cover verandas, modern comfortable quarters, and even bird baths. This 1885 photograph shows the buildings constructed on this site in 1881. Previous adobe structures, built in 1855, were left standing as rear wings. On the far left was the commanding officer's residence. The other two buildings were customarily occupied by lieutenants or captains and their families. Built in 1849 to house bachelor officers, Old Bedlam is Wyoming's oldest documented building. This is the building known as Old Bedlam. Old Bedlam is the nickname for the oldest standing building in Wyoming. Built for bachelor officers, it served as barracks headquarters and more famous for its boisterous atmosphere and historic significance to westward expansion. The name reflects its noisy, chaotic life and also connects to London's famous Bethlehem Royal Hospital, Bedlam, for the mentally ill. The interior displays are designed to reflect different eras of its use. The bottom north quarter is refurbished to represent the mid-1850s. This era features primitive furnishings, shared bedrooms, and limited lighting. The south bottom portion represents the late Civil War years, mid-1860s. The upstairs portion shows the living quarters of Colonel William O. Collins, who commanded the fort during his tenure. Here are the infantry barracks from the north side of the fort. And this is the ruins of the infantry barracks, where the enlisted men stayed. In answer to the perpetual needs for housing, construction of an enlisted men's barracks commenced at the opposite end of these foundation ruins. The barracks were extended in this direction as more men were assigned. Kitchen, mess halls, laundresses' quarters, and latrines were built behind. Home to about 150 men, the two-story barracks were sparsely furnished. This historical marker commemorates John Portuguese Phillips' legendary 236-mile ride to secure help for the beleaguered Fort Phil Kearny after the Fetterman Massacre in 1866. Officers' Row is a collection of officers' quarters buildings. These structures, which face the parade ground, were known for their relative luxury for a western fort and served as a center of social life for the post's officers and their families. These include Old Bedlam, post surgeons' quarters, captain's quarters, and lieutenant colonel's quarters, also known as the Burt House. First is the post surgeons' quarters, built in 1875. This is the part of the fort that's considered the officers' row. This right here is the post surgeon's room, or house. It's a duplex. Constructed in early 1875, this building is typical of the mid-1870s double officers' quarters. From 1875 to 1890, this building housed the post surgeon, who was the keystone of medical care at the post. In 1880, the surgeon treated over 529 medical issues at this post. He was also in charge of daily weather records and collected and prepared a variety of scientific specimens. As surgeons were often the most educated at the post, they were held in high esteem. Next is the Lieutenant Colonel's quarters, also known as the Burt House, built in 1884. And this is Colonel Burt's quarters. Built in 1884, this officer's house would become home to Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Sheridan Burt, an infantry officer that served twice at Fort Laramie. His second tenure at the post would run from 1887 to 1888. Burt would serve as commanding officer at Fort Laramie for a short duration. Shortly after arriving at the post, the Burt family sent their children, Edith and Reynolds, east for school. Edith would return during her school vacations and stay in her bedroom upstairs. In restoring the building, the National Park Service was given the advantage of first-hand primary source. Reynolds Burt. Reynolds gave a clear recollection of the furnishings of the house he occupied as a young boy of 14 years in 1888. The final stop of the day was the Post Traders Store and Complex. This is Sutler's Store. It's also where the post office was, and the Pony Express used to come through here. Built and run by a civilian licensed by the Army, the Post Traders Store did a profitable business with soldiers, Indians, gold seekers, and immigrants. The north section, built of stone in 1852, was the Sutler's headquarters, and for a time, post office. An 1883 edition housed the Officers Club and an enlisted men and civilians bar. The men would meet in off hours to play cards, reminisce about their homes and families, listen to Jim Old Gabe Bridger tell tales of trapping and fighting Indians, and just relax. Here they could get away from their sergeants and forget the situation they were in. The store has been restored to its 1860s appearance. This is my souvenir pin from Fort Laramie National Historic Site. I have now added it to my faux Ranger's hat. Mary and I thank you for watching part 1 of Day 7 of our 2025 Pacific Northwest road trip. We hope you'll join us for part 2, where we went to Oregon Trail Sites, Register Cliffs State Historic Site, and Oregon Trail Ruts State Historic Site before making our way to Green River, Wyoming for the night.